Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're hitting somewhere really special. We're taking a deep dive into Stockholm.
That's right.
And specifically, how to navigate this amazing city with kids in tow.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're just there for a quick visit or, thinking about a bigger move. Now, this deep dive, it draws on a fantastic family guide we found, aimed at both tourists and new residents. Plus, we've layered in insights from, various travel blogs, official city tourism sites, that kind of thing.
Right, getting a rounded view.
Exactly. So the mission today is to pull out the most important bits of knowledge for you. Practical tips, precise guidance, maybe some surprising facts, and hopefully those aha moments.
To really make the most of Stockholm with a family.
Precisely. And what we kept finding, what we'll explore, is this sort of unique, child-friendly logic that seems baked into the city itself.
Yeah, that phrase really captures something about Stockholm.
Okay, so let's kick things off for those maybe just planning a shorter trip. A holiday, perhaps? What we saw is how well the city mixes things adults enjoy with stuff that's genuinely fun for kids. It's not always easy to find that balance.
No, it really isn't. So what's there for the grown-ups specifically?
Well, you could start your day, say, with a morning walk through Gamlistan. That's the old town.
Cobblestones, colorful buildings.
Yeah, exactly. Wander the streets, check out the Royal Palace from the outside, maybe grab a coffee at a cafe on Västerlånggatan. It's really atmospheric.
Sounds lovely.
Then later, maybe a canal tour. They leave from near City Hall. You get these great audio-guided views of all the key landmarks from the water.
Ah, nice and relaxing too after the walking.
Totally. And a good way to get your bearings. For the afternoon, culture-wise, Djurgården Island is the place.
Right, that's where lots of the museums are.
Yeah, our sources point to Fotografiska, the photography museum, which often has quite engaging exhibits, or the Vasa Museum, which is just, wow.
We'll definitely need to talk more about the Vasa.
Oh, for sure. Or you could just wander scans in the open-air museum and zoo. That's on Djurgården, too. And then maybe dinner over in Södermalm. Yeah. It's got a great vibe. Local bistros, cool design shops, trendy cafes.
Söder, yeah. Very popular area.
Okay, but what about the kids? Where does Stockholm really deliver for them on a shorter trip?
This is key, isn't it?
Well, Junebacken came up again and again in our research. It brings Astrid Lindgren's stories, Pippi Longstocking, and all that to life.
Oh, brilliant. How does it do that?
Through these immersive live scenes and the big highlight, this magical story train ride, it sounds like more than just a theme park, more like stepping into the books.
That sounds fantastic. Better than just looking at static displays,
Definitely. Now back to the Vasa Museum.
Okay, yes. The big ship. Often historical sites, they can be a bit, dry for kids. What makes the Vasa work so well based on what you found? Is it just the sheer size or?
That's a really good question. The scale is obviously impressive, this huge 17th century warship pulled from the harbor. But they don't just leave it at that. They offer specific family audio tours. These tell the ship's story, but through the eyes of the people who built it or sailed on it.
Ah, that's clever. Makes it personal.
Exactly. Makes the history much more captivating, even for younger kids. And then Skansen, which we mentioned, the open-air museum.
Right, the zoo part, pony rides.
Yes, but it's also like a time capsule. It shows traditional Swedish life, old buildings, crafts. It's a sort of gentle, immersive way to get a feel for the country's heritage without it feeling like a lesson.
A living museum, essentially.
And then there are things everyone can enjoy together. You absolutely have to do Fika.
The coffee and cake break?
Yes. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's like a proper cultural institution. Grab a cinnamon bun, maybe from Fabrik. They're great. Find a cozy cafe. Oh. It's about taking a pause, connecting.
A daily ritual. Very Swedish. And a good chance for people watching, I bet.
Totally. Another great spot for everyone is Kungsträdgården Park, right in the city center.
Ah, yeah, the King's Garden.
Depending on the season, there might be events, ice skating in winter. It's always got open-air cafes. It really shows how they design public spaces to be used to be community hubs.
That's a good point. They make their parks very active.
And if you want thrills, there's Grönalund. It's an amusement park, also on Djurgården Island, right on the water. Fun for all ages.
Okay, so plenty to pack in.
Definitely.
What strikes me here, listening to all this, is how well Stockholm seems to weave these things together. It's not like you have adult activities over here and kid activities over there, completely separate.
Exactly.
They blend them. You can have a culturally interesting day that's also genuinely fun for the kids. It feels very integrated. Nobody has to feel like they're missing out or just tagging along.
That's a great way to put it. It's that child-friendly logic, again, I think. It's designed with families in mind, not as an afterthought. Okay, but let's shift gears a bit. What if Stockholm isn't just a holiday destination? What if you're thinking about, a longer stay
Hmm.
or even making the move?
Right, this is where it gets really interesting from an integration perspective.
For adults moving there, figuring out how to connect, how to integrate, that's huge. Language, obviously, and building a network. But the way Stockholm supports this seems quite unique.
How so? What did the sources highlight?
Well, these things called Öppna för School open preschools. Like, there's one mentioned in Rogsved. They aren't formal daycare.
Okay, so what are they?
They're more like drop-in centers. Parents and young kids can just come together. It makes them these really low-pressure places for newcomers to, say, practice their Swedish, meet other parents, make friends.
Ah,
Yeah.
I see. Very informal, very community-led. That sounds brilliant for breaking the ice.
Yeah, and apparently a great source of mutual support, too. Beyond that, there are specific Swedish integration cafes, cultural meetups, seminars, all part of Stockholm's official integration framework.
So structured support as well.
Right. Even places like Fotografiska, the museum, run workshops linking their exhibitions to discussion events, specifically aimed at newcomers. It's a really organic way to foster connections around a shared interest.
Combining culture and community building? Smart.
And for the kids settling into a new life, the city seems to have really strong support systems there, too.
Like what? Beyond the schools themselves.
Well, those open preschools we just mentioned are obviously great for kids, too. Practicing Swedish naturally, making friends before formal schooling, perhaps.
Sure, gets them comfortable.
And lots of the family-friendly museums offer special discovery tours. Not just kid-friendly in general, but actually designed with interactive bits to make learning about the city's history and culture really engaging for them.
Making it fun, not a chore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the playgrounds, the Lekparkers. Our sources mention specific ones like Uggleparken and Brickerteppen. They're highlighted not just as safe play areas, but as these really well-designed community hubs.
Places where families naturally meet and mingle.
Precisely. They seem to be seen as vital parts of the neighborhood fabric. And thinking about family life and community for new residents, Stockholm really leverages its green spaces.
We talked about Djurgården for tourists, but it's key for residents too.
Absolutely. Things like just going for strolls there, having picnics, maybe taking those archipelago boat rides nearby.
Yeah.
It's all part of boosting well-being, getting into that Swedish friluftsliv, the outdoor life thing.
Embracing nature, even in the city.
Yeah. And just the everyday neighborhood park life seems really valued. Public swimming spots in the summer, those great playgrounds, and this is a big one. Free public transport on buses, metros, even some ferries if you have a kid in a stroller.
Wow, free transport with a stroller. That's huge.
Isn't it? It just makes getting around the city so much easier, less stressful for families. It's a policy that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it really does. Connecting this to the bigger picture, it feels like Stockholm intentionally builds these community aspects and support structures. It's not accidental. They're actively trying to help new families not just survive, but actually settle in and, thrive.
Feels very much like intentional social design.
Definitely. But were there any maybe subtler cultural things your research flagged? Things beyond language or finding playgrounds that might surprise new families arriving there?
That's a good point. One thing that came through is the emphasis on egalitarian parenting. The shared parental leave is quite generous and widely used.
Right, so you see lots of dads out with strollers during the week.
Exactly. And that really impacts the whole rhythm of the city, reinforces that sense of shared responsibility, of community. It might feel different from what people are used to.
That's a really interesting observation, a subtle but significant cultural difference.
Okay, so let's try and make this more concrete. How does this play out in practice? We looked at a kind of suggested one-week timeline.
Okay, comparing the two scenarios. Tourist versus new resident.
Yeah. It shows how activities might differ. So like day one for a short-term visitor might be explore Gamla hop on a canal tour, then maybe Fika over in Södermalm, hitting the main highlights, basically.
The classic tourist trail.
Right. But for a newly arrived family, day one might look different. Maybe they start at an open preschool meetup in the morning.
Focusing on integration right away.
Exactly. And then maybe a more relaxed stroll through Gamla later. It blends settling in with starting to explore. Of course, any timeline like this is totally flexible. It depends on the season, your family's interests.
Sure, it's just illustrative.
And based on everything, some really practical tips emerged that seem vital, however long you're staying.
Okay, let's hear them.
Transport first. Get an SL card. It works on buses, the metro, trams, even some ferries. Super convenient.
And the stroller thing.
And the free travel for kids and strollers. Honestly, that's such a game changer for family logistics and budgets. Don't underestimate that.
Good tip. What else?
Booking ahead for popular spots with timed entry places like Juneback and the Vasa Museum, Fotografiska, it's really recommended.
Just to avoid queues.
Partly, yeah. But also, timed entries can make the whole experience less overwhelming, especially for kids. You know, when you need to be there, it potentially manages crowds better, reduces sensory overload, makes the day feel more manageable.
That makes sense. Planning helps keep things calm.
Definitely.
This does raise a key question, though. How do you really maximize the experience? Make it authentic, but also, stress-free, whether you're there a week or moving there. Beyond booking and transport, any other sort of less obvious tips? Maybe about local customs or things people overlook?
Absolutely. One thing is layers. Dress in layers.
The classic Scandinavian advice.
It really applies in Stockholm. So many activities are outdoors, especially on Djurgården. And the weather can change fast. Just be prepared. Embrace the Nordic climate, as they say.
Practical, but essential.
Also, don't feel you have to do everything. Mix and match. Combine a museum visit with just a relaxed Fika break. Or maybe cook dinner at your accommodation sometimes. If you're staying longer, gives you a different, maybe more local feeling rhythm.
Yeah, avoid burnout, pace yourselves.
Exactly. And a real pro tip, especially for newcomers, actively seek out and join local community groups online or in person for language practice, for arranging playdates for the kids.
Using those networks.
Yeah, the sources suggested that's often one of the quickest ways to build a support system and start feeling properly settled in.
Makes total sense. Tap into the existing community.
So wrapping up, the overwhelming message seems to be that Stockholm is, well, remarkably livable and genuinely welcoming for families, whether you're just visiting or putting down roots.
It really does feel like a unique combination, doesn't it? You've got the history, loads of green space right in the city, the culture, but all underpinned by this very thoughtful, child-friendly logic we keep coming back to. It provides structure, like the good transport and support systems, but also loads of freedom for families to explore and kind of find their own way, their own Stockholm. It feels very intentional, the design, the policies.
It really does. And it leaves you with a final thought, I think. It makes you wonder, how can other cities around the world learn from this? How can they be more thoughtfully designed with this kind of child-friendly logic built in from the ground up, not just as a way to attract tourists, but as a fundamental way to build thriving communities where families don't just live, but truly feel at home and flourish?
That's a powerful question to end on. Designing cities for everyone, starting with the smallest residents.